Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Paddocks. On this episode, we're saying a tearful farewell to the 2023 season and talking about everything that went down. Of course, we'll cover the final standings for all of y'all listening, but we're mainly going to talk about our thoughts on how the season went and what we expect from the upcoming break. Now, on the episode, we do have a full house, so I'm really excited. Joining us, we have Hanna Ito, Meg Rachel, Melissa KC, and myself, Chelsea. Now, this might be a long one, folks. Grab a seat, grab a drink, and enjoy.
All right. And I'm just going to kick it off with what I think was probably my favorite race of the whole season as far as chaos goes. And that would be Australia. I think it was like 3 race restarts, the red flags, the just utter chaos that it was. And I mean, I was up 2 a.m. with my dad. Like, we both just trying to stay awake for the race. And then every single time we were falling asleep, it's fine because something new chaotic happened. It was an insane moment. Additionally, Oscar's grandmother making treats for the entire McLaren team was precious. And honestly, I want to know how long that took her because those teams are not small. There's a lot of people. And then any and all Nicole Piastri tweets. That woman is an icon and will forever be in my heart. I love her.
I think for me, it was Singapore because we got to see Carlando on the podium and all just the content that came out of it. It was a very chaotic race, and seeing someone other than Red Bull on that podium for the season was phenomenal. And I love the iconic night race and the atmosphere that comes with it. I mean, we had Lewis up there, Carlos, and Lando, the perfect trio in my mind.
Honestly, Hannah, I have to agree. Singapore was epic, especially how at the end, Carlos and Lando just worked together to fend off Mercedes. And I almost picked that moment, but honestly, there were so many good ones that it's hard to pick just one. And that's why I kind of have to, do I want to call it the evolution of Max? But I have to pick how Max over the season, it feels like changed. Like he got more chill and more out of pocket as the season went on. And I just love that. Like he used to be out of pocket in like some Red Bull Christmas videos or stuff like that. But now he's basically out of pocket 24/7 and I'm just here for it. It made me a Max girly through and through. And I never thought I would say this, honestly.
I completely agree. I'm not a big, huge fan of Max, but this season I was very entertained with his personality. Although I think if I had to I don't have like a specific favorite moment, but every single time that we had a car radio this season, so much sass. Everyone was sassy this season. There was Carlos, Pierre, Esty, like even Oscar was like, "Is Carlos blind?" I'll never forget that. These people this season really decided that they were going to show their true personalities. And I think ever since COVID, the people on the track are just more chaotic and care less about media and PR, especially with how social media is changing, and they love it. They are just drinking it in. And so are we, if I'm being honest.
I agree. I think Out of Pocket Max is definitely my favorite. And I definitely think Red Bull is kind of just given up PR wise. They're like, tell us what you want to say and we'll find a way for you to say it that's like not going to insult a bunch of people. But I mean, again, Max is Dutch. They're very straightforward. They will tell you how it is and that they don't care. But every radio this year was laced with some amount of sass. Just like everybody had their sassy pants on, and I, especially towards the end of the season, especially I think after the summer break, it was gloves off. Nobody could care about PR or anything like that. It was just, I need more of that, honestly.
Speaking of out of pocket comments and everything, I just lived for the whole Vegas weekend with Max's comments. I love Vegas through and through, but him being so blunt about how he felt about the weekend itself and everything was so funny. And it was funny seeing like non-Max fans being like, you know what? Yeah, I kind of do agree, but overall, that was like my favorite race weekend. I just wanted to put it out there. I think it's just because it was like a new one and just seeing like all the chaos because we didn't know what we were gonna expect from that weekend in general. And of course, it delivered, and I'm glad it did. So happy about that. But yeah, no, him that weekend was a good one.
I will say that one thing for me out of this whole season was the George memes. I mean, they literally just kind of sealed the whole season as a whole. I mean, the iconic this, I mean, the drive, and just all of that. Like, if I could think of a highlight, that was hilarious.
I just think the social media content from the teams this year, we had like sticker wars between the teams, especially like at the last season. We had like a lot of responses, on social media. Like I think some of the social media admins were playing like tic-tac-toe during a red flag and like all this fun stuff that I think was definitely very different than past seasons, but very entertaining for all of the fans. And I hope that kind of continues.
Oh, I agree. I think they hired a few more Gen Z social media people because just the content that we got was incredible, especially from Aston. The Fernando content that we got was, for me, it was a little unexpected. I feel like a few people were like, what is this man doing? The Taylor Swift, Fernando Alonso random dating rumor. As a Swiftie, as a Taylor Swift girly, oh my God. I was living for that. It was so funny. He played along with it, which I thought was incredible, especially with the karma and like anti-hero audios that he used. And then Miami, where the Miami admins were like, what's your favorite Taylor Swift song? And he just laughed and kept walking. I pray that we get more Fernando content. I pray that we get it over the break. I pray that we get it next year. I need more George memes. George needs another iconic pose for the F1 intro because we have to say goodbye to the iconic, just like hands up. I'm gonna miss that pose. It was such a good direction for them.
I mean, honestly, the Fernando TikTok era, I love it. And considering Aston's sponsors, one of them being TikTok, it makes so much sense. But I just love how he leans into it, like, or at least the admin, whoever admins his account, leans into it like wholeheartedly and makes it so realistic. Is it Jimmy that runs it? I have no idea.
Not only how Fernando feeds into it, but I also love how like the F1 commentators themselves were feeding into it during the race weekend itself, like making like little references with her songs and everything. But speaking of George memes, does that man know what he's doing? Or is he's just like naive to it? He has to know because it's just perfect timing every single time. And my favorite ones is always like his reactions when he genuinely doesn't know. He's just like, oh. And he like makes a certain face that just like kills me.
One of my favorites is honestly one of the most recent ones, and it's like the Josh Hutcherson meme, like the whistle, and it's his helmet, and they lift it up, and it's the picture of Josh Hutcherson. I just love how everything that's meme worthy is just involved and surrounds George. Like, I feel like none of the meme stuff has anything to do with Lewis, and it's just solely George. And also the memes comparing George to that one kid from that one kid's TV show. And I forget his name. I think his name is Sid. It's like Lazy Town or something. And then comparing him to Woody from Toy Story. That made everything.
I think my favorite George meme is the one from, I want to say it was Brazil, where it's like a shot of Charles in the driver's parade and then George just comes right in front. That I saw that so many times on TikTok for so many different things, and I died laughing every single time. But as a OG Hunger Games Josh Hutcherson girly, that one killed me. That was incredible.
I think my favorite part of the George memes is how much he feeds into it himself. Like I forgot which one it was where he did like that dramatic like sassy turnaround in the driver's parade, and he like later on like they made a video of him like walking down like the hallway in their like garage pit area type thing, and like he stops and just strikes a pose. So I love how he like feeds into it. Like he makes it like more enjoyable, and I think that's what's even better, knowing how he like carries himself.
Can we get some George Fernando meme content? I feel like that would be just incredible. They're like the meme kings of the paddock, and I feel like that would be just chef's kiss.
I mean, they partied with each other New Year's this year, so why not meme content over winter break? I mean, honestly, after I saw those party pictures, anything can happen with those two.
Now, this isn't a meme, but one of my favorite moments from this season has to be when when F1 was in Mexico and Lando bringing that little boy back to the paddock for his birthday and seeing how it just made that little boy's day. That was so, I don't know, heartwarming, and just how Lando was with the boy. It was just, you love to see it. And then also the boy in Silverstone dressed as him, his mini him. That was so cute.
I will say many of the teams have done a lot of like interactions with kids this year's. The STEM people coming into the paddock and learning more to elevate, these younger kids into the future of F1 and the future of like their education. And I think that has been really cool to see.
This is going to sound so basic, but I think my favorite part of the season was going to Coda. Because that was so cool seeing Formula One Academy and seeing the Formula One teams like really drive and live and go at it. Because yes, I saw Miami, but comparing a flat race to what Coda was, so much fun. So cool to watch. And first day, not that great. I'm sorry, Coda. Friday, you guys messed up. Every other day though, so cool. So worth it. I had an amazing time. I honestly think it was a really great fan experience.
Yes, I'm just going to agree with Chelsea real quick because the USGP was amazing, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because I don't know if I can, but I did get to go into the paddock and did get to go into the Alfa Romeo garage and kind of like see all that. And that was literally the coolest experience ever, to the point where I'm like, can I spend the money and do that more often? Even though that's probably not the right decision, but it was very amazing.
I'm a little butthurt, Chelsea, that you're so ashamed of Miami, because that was the race I went to with you and Leanne, and I really feel offended by
You
that.
mean the one where you almost died?
That was the very first day, and we were all feeling it, okay? It wasn't just me, but that was definitely a moment for the season. And then although I wasn't at Coda, y'all still made my day because I got to like say hello to Lando over FaceTime. That was literally the best moment, one of the best moments of my life. The girls know I started crying afterwards. And there's a very funny picture and a meme that my college friends made. I don't know if you'll ever see it, but yeah. Although I wasn't at Coda, I felt like I was there. Shout out to Leanne for giving me that FaceTime call. Love you, Leanne.
And thank you, Casey, for the tickets to the pit lane walk.
Now, obviously, I think we could all sit here and talk about our favorite moments for the whole episode. But let's tell you what happened during the season that wasn't just our favorite moments. And we're going to start with the final standings for the drivers and constructor championships. Now, there are 20 drivers. We're not just going to give a list for you. So I broke this down for us. I really want to talk about the top 5 drivers of the season first, because I am sorry. Can we just take a moment? Let's take a moment for Fernando right now. This man is in the top 5. Age means nothing. Age means nothing. Not with this skill. Not with that skill. I wish he had gotten that first place podium that he deserved, but you know what? There's another season, there's another year, and Fernando right now is still going to be with us. So I'm counting on it.
I agree. I think he definitely gave this season everything he could, and it paid off. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more Fernando podiums, and hopefully that first place. I'm curious to see what he does when he gets first place, because like he used to do dancing and all that, and I'm very interested to see how he is when he gets out of that car when he gets to first place. But I'm mostly, I think, looking forward to more Fernando meme content. The man is an icon, and Jimmy does a fantastic job with that. But I think Aston is. I think they're going to be pretty decent next year. They seem like they're getting up there with their car, so we'll see.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Aston as a whole, especially at the start of the season, was on another planet. Or, I mean, they weren't on the planet that Red Bull's on and still is on, but they also weren't on the planet that Ferrari and the rest were on. So they were somewhere in between there. And honestly, I love it. Yes, am I a Seb girly more than a Fernando girly? Yes. Did I wish that it would have been Seb in that car? Because he would have deserved it, yes. But at the same time, Fernando, at his age, with his time in F1 and everything, he deserves everything he has. And be that a semi-rocket ship Aston Martin car, go for it. Sadly, though, AM kind of fell off towards the end of the season, but I'm still happy that he retained, what was it, fourth in the constructor, in the drivers. So good for him, honestly. But at the same time, I checked the standings. What was it? Like, I remember like seeing them after Sunday's race, like on the screen, and then I checked them again. I think it was yesterday, and I kind of forgot that Charles was still P5. Like, me as a Charles girly, I was like, how is he not lower? Because I just kept remembering how not great that Ferrari was. So honestly, I'm a happy Charles girly, but also I'm very surprised Charles girly with how well he did.
I really hope they took the SF23 back to Maranello and just burned it.
Yeah, no, I think it was because Charles, like that last kind of run of the season where he was on the front row for like 4 races in a row, he was like bringing that car to places where that car didn't deserve to be. And I think that's what really put him over the edge. And honestly, like when Fernando got the podium in the very first race of the season, and it was like his first podium in absolutely forever, that was crazy. It was just like, oh my God, is this real? You know, that was a highlight. But I mean, this really was Max's season, though. If we look at it, he broke so many records, had an incredible season, and he achieved so much with that car. That was also probably one of the greatest cars ever built because, you know, they were held back by the technical regulations. Like, they could have made it faster, but the FIA was like, no, you know, you can't go too fast. And I thought it was so cute. You know, Max named his car Rocky, and I wonder if it was short for like rocket ship or something. It was just so cute. I love it when the drivers name their cars. It's just so fitting because I mean, I think they bond with them over the year for better or for worse, because they just go through so much. And they were very like Max and Rocky were incredibly in sync this season, and he was the only like full season driver that didn't have a DNF this year. Everyone else had at least, you know, one DNF that drove a full season. AlphaTauri is chaos. But that's an impressive feat in itself because it takes a lot for these very complicated machines to work perfectly every race. Like, that's crazy. And another fun fact is that I think this is the first time that we've seen multiple, like 3 multi-time world championships in the top 5, because you have Max with 3 now, you know, Lewis with 7, and Fernando with 2, all in the top 5. So that's an incredible kind of competition between all of them that I don't know if we've seen in a while.
I definitely think Max bonded with his car. I always like to watch the post-race interviews and like all of that, and Max is like he was getting emotional talking about having to retire the RB19. He was so sad about it. He loved that car. And I mentioned this in our Abu Dhabi recap. He was very visibly stressed out when, who was it, Jake was in his car during FP1. Max was stressed. That boy was like on edge the entire time. He was like, don't mess up my car. Yeah, it was so sweet to see how much he like bonded with his car. I don't know.
And then on the opposite end of things, we can all see how George felt about his car as he put it in the wall at tire testing. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? So, on the other hand, George and the Mercedes team is very glad to get rid of that W14.
No, the top 5 this season, individually, every single one of them was just doing very impressive things on their own. And I'm very excited to see them again next season, especially Charles, just because we put so much faith into this kid and Ferrari just screws him over every single time. So I'm really hoping that they get it together next season because I know that they're kind of revamping a lot of things. But I do want to move on to 6 through 10 because 6 through 10 has some of my favorite people. Look, I absolutely love Oscar. I will write for him. He placed 9th this season. That rookie was so much fun to watch. Like, I loved seeing him really grow into his spot onto the grid and in McLaren because if you compare just his earlier interviews to his moments in like the Max podcast, by the end of the season, he was a completely different personality. There was a big shift. And I think this was like even in his driving skills, like in the confidence and how he drove. He just seemed to be so confident. And I can't wait to hopefully watch that keep happening with McLaren and for them to kind of keep being such a good supporter for him like they've been with Lando.
I absolutely loved watching Oscar grow this season. I mean, as a fellow Aries, it was incredible. He killed it. He really did. And he really started coming out of his shell, which was amazing because he just got funnier and more out of pocket over the course of this season. I honestly enjoyed watching both of the McLaren boys just kill it after the summer break once McLaren started bringing upgrades and like they really just they popped off after summer. It was great to watch. I mean, Lando led for 20 plus laps. I don't remember exactly how many, but he led the USGP for like over 20 laps. And that was incredible to see, especially in person. Like I was at turn 15, close to Hanna, and just because you kind of see him, if you've ever been to Coda, you can see him coming down from turn 11 to basically turn 12 through like 16 almost. And just that like little chain, like just watching every single time Max and Lando come up, I'm just sitting there like, don't pass him, don't pass him, don't pass him. And it was incredible. And I will say, switching gears though, I am also pretty proud of Lance considering he broke both of his wrists like 12 days before testing. So to see him at least in the top 10, even though he's 10th, is pretty cool. He had his moments throughout the season, but he really came back from that.
As the resident McLaren girly, the way this season turned around for both Oscar and Lando, it's absolutely incredible, like the girls have mentioned. For both drivers to finish in the top 10 after the way they started in Bahrain, I honestly, for one, wasn't imagining that at the start of the season, and two, couldn't be more proud of the team and all the hard work they put in to get that car to where it ended up. And this is Lando's highest point finish so far in his F1 career. And if next year is saying what McLaren is saying it could be, could we see him topping that next year? I don't know. Also, Oscar being a rookie and finishing in the top 10 period is insane. Like, no rookie has had that good of a rookie season since Lewis Hamilton in his rookie year with McLaren. It's just absolutely insane. Beast mode.
Yeah, this year I started liking McLaren more and more. Our fellow paddock girly, Amy, who's not here. Her and I were talking about how like we started like having a growing like for both drivers. So happy to see how they finish, and it was really fun watching Oscar in his rookie year, just like as mentioned before, grow and like seeing his personality like even flourish with him, because like his radios were always like hilarious to me because he was always like so calm and chill, even like when he finished like in the top three or whatever, if he had a good race, he's like, yeah, sounds good. Like so nonchalant. So I really love that about him. But again, seeing how they turned it around from start of the season, it's just a work of art. And I was really hoping to see a Lando win this year. So hoping for that for next year. And I've said it once and I'll say it again. Oscar, hands down, rookie of the year. And if that doesn't happen, I'm ready to riot with me.
I forgot to say something. When you guys were talking about Lando leading the laps at Coda, I just remember watching Silverstone and hearing the crowd on the TV while Lando took the lead at the start. That was another incredible moment. And just that qualifying at Silverstone, too, it was just incredible. I wish I was there in person because everyone said the crowd was just absolutely insane.
Yeah, so this was kind of my first full season of watching F1. The first F1 race I ever watched was Abu Dhabi last year. So I kind of have a soft spot for Oscar because it was his like first full year as a driver. And he did absolutely amazing this year. And he was actually able to keep relatively close to Lando, which can't be an easy feat because he's known as one of the top drivers in Formula One right now. And that can't be easy for anyone, let alone a rookie. So great job for him. And with more experience, I can definitely see him potentially even fighting for championships in the future. We shall see. And hoping McLaren can kind of start the season with a good car instead of what they had this year. So that way they can really give a good fight to Red Bull and the rest of the teams next year. And like Rachel mentioned with Lance, it's like crazy how he like, you saw the pictures early in the season where he was like double casted, like he could barely walk. And he was able to like kill at the beginning of the season. He had some rough patches, but towards the end, he was going from like the pit lane into the points or from like way down in the, bad qualifying up into the points as well. Which is super impressive as well. And I don't know if you guys saw, but his doctor, Dr. Mir, I believe. So Lance sent him like a helmet, like a signed helmet, from this season as like a thank you for fixing me kind of thing, which was really kind of nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with the other girlies about Oscar. I mean, I've never been so proud of Oscar and McLaren overall this season. I mean, it was a true comeback season since Miami, where the upgrades actually started working and benefiting them in the long run. And I mean, he is a rookie and got his first place podium in year one. I mean, that's truly insane because most of them don't. And like Meg said, since it's been a really long time since someone has been able to achieve that. So if he's able to do that in year one, I'm honestly very looking forward to seeing what the years come of Oscar. And I'm really glad that McLaren signed a multi-year deal with him. So like Red Bull and whatnot can't snatch him because if any indicator of this season, he's killing it. But I was surprised about George Russell in the standings. I did not see him being where he was. I mean, he did great overall, but it honestly surprised me when I saw the standings after all of it because I was like, "Oh yeah, like George has done decent this year."
No, George was definitely a sneak. He just kind of snuck his way into the top 10 there. But I have to say, there are so many people I enjoy in the 11 to 15 field of the driver standings because, like, look, back to back, I love them. The Alpine boys, they did so well this season. Okay, even with that weird relationship they have with one another, they were really good teammates. They got it done. Alex, I wish he could have been higher, but the thing is, he has such good skill. He did extremely well, and I think he was really setting an amazing example for Logan this season as like a driver and teammate. But we have to remember what cars they're driving, so the standing in that case, perfect. And of course, I love Yuki. Him being driver of the day for the last race is everything I needed to see. And of course, Bottas did kick ass, literally and figuratively, in his car, considering his car. Now, I feel like we should acknowledge, basically, to me at least, everyone in this 11 to 15 field, they're here not because of their skill, but literally just because of the car that they're driving. So I could imagine all of them higher if they had a different vehicle.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chelsea. Yuki and Alex, to me in general, did a great job this year, especially given the fact how their cars have been in the past. But you mentioned Alpine, and I was just like, yeah, I kind of forgot about them, but they were always there, like always in like the upper midfield. And I don't say like in a bad way, because like I feel like if I do remember them, it might be for something really bad. So it's like maybe it's better that I don't remember some things, knowing my memory. But no, overall, like this midfield was really nice to see, like that those fights going on and everything, the wheel to wheel action. Just seeing where they can, like how far up they can take their car compared to like the top five engines constructors, and just being like, hey, hello, we're here too. It's not only just the top 4 or 5 teams, like they're just important.
Yeah, Alex and the Williams this year and the upgrades that they brought actually really started to work well. And Alex really started to establish himself and like push the Williams in a degree that we haven't seen in years past, which was very intriguing. And I really look forward to seeing what 2024 Williams brings. And could we see more advancements to help further them in the future to where you could see them in like the 6 to 10 range? I mean, Williams was a very dominating team for a very long time in the younger years. So it makes complete sense to see them do better.
Yeah, I think Alex is the true hero of the season, because I think he pretty much single-handedly dragged Williams up to P7 in the championship, which is huge for that team, as it means they get a lot more money, like millions of dollars more in like winnings, I guess, which can really help them develop more and kind of get back to where they used to be. But I felt so bad for Esteban this season. He had 6 DNFs, technically 7 if you count Australia, but he had finished like the 90% race distance, so it technically counted as he finished the race. But that's about a fourth of the races this season. And considering we have so many races now, like you can only think about what he could have done if the Alpine was more reliable, because like he did get a podium, in Monaco, and, Pierre was able to get a podium later in the season as well. So I think if Alpine can maybe get a handle on the reliability a bit, they could potentially move up a bit in the championships and maybe kind of be in that more of the upper midfield. And Yuki did amazing as well, especially since this was his first season kind of being the leader of the team now that Pierre had left. He was kind of like, the more experienced teammate, the one who's been there a bit longer. And then having on top of that, having to deal with kind of rotating teammates. Because first he had Nick, and then he had Danny, and then Danny got injured, so we had Liam, and then he had Danny again, which is kind of like more stress on top of that. But I think he did very well this season, regardless of all that. Like, I think when he led a couple of laps during that very last race in Abu Dhabi, like everyone was freaking out seeing Yuki at the top of the board. And I think he led as many laps of a race as Fernando this year. So, like, good for him.
Agreed. I think going back and forth between teammates, like Casey said, had to have been rough, but I think he did hold himself pretty well despite all of the back and forth and the controversy that was out there with said teammates and the future of that. I mean, he had 3. Well, he's just like there, just like, I'm just gonna do me.
And honestly, we're just what should be 16 to 20. I'm gonna tell you guys now, 16 to 22. We had a few people come in and out this season. But for the last 16 to 22, we had Nico, Daniel, Joe, Kevin, Liam, Logan, and Nick. Now, obviously, a few of those names are no longer on the field with us, but they still did their best. And speaking of that, Logan, babe, you tried. Okay, I wish you luck for whatever motorsport world takes him. I'm so sad to say I don't think it's going to be Williams. He did his best this season, though. That man got a point, okay? First American in a long time. He did it. He got up there. Was it a few reasons he got up there? Yes, but that doesn't matter because he still did it. And it needs to be acknowledged.
And it was at the US GP, so our All-American boy.
Totally agree with you, Chelsea. And while I also agree with the fact that he likely will not last past the season, as sad as it is to say, and very honestly un-Williams-like, because usually they give their drivers a bit of time to develop, can we take a second to talk about Nick? Because honestly, that was very rough to watch in real time. But then the whole thing got brought back up at the end of Abu Dhabi when they did the final driver standings on F1 TV, and you saw not Nick De Vries, you saw Paul De Vries with the Estonian flag next to it in the standing dead last 0 points, and I was like, F1 TV, who messed up? Who's going to get sacked? Because for those of you who don't know, there is a next season F2 driver, current F3 driver called Paul Aaron from Estonia. And so they kind of mixed those two together because they also used Paul's new team, Trident, as Nick's team. So I was just like sitting there like, guys, has this boy not suffered enough?
I also saw that apparently Nick was in the paddock at Abu Dhabi, so I feel like, yeah, I feel bad for him. I feel like he just hasn't been able to catch a break.
Okay, so knowing this speculation that he may have been in the paddock this past weekend makes me even more annoyed. I'm no longer kind of annoyed. I'm very annoyed that Nick wasn't involved in like the team photo, because that's actually like one of like my favorite things that they do at the end of the season when they take like their little like class pictures. It reminds me like the little elementary kindergarten ones where they're like standing next to your classmates and whatnot. But Nick wasn't in the AlphaTauri one, and that makes me feel type of way towards the team. Because it's just like you included Liam, but not him, and Nick was involved in the first half of the season. So it's like, can we be here for a little bit? I mean, there's probably like stuff that goes on behind the scenes. That's the reason why, but it's just kind of like, I don't know. It rubbed me the wrong way. So
I'm going to tell you the reason. It's because he got a point. That's really it. The kid got a point. They're going to celebrate his point. Oh, I'm sorry. He got 2 points. So even more so reason that they're going to put him in the photo. Shout out to Nick, though. The baby tried, but the kid got points.
But I know, I hear you, Chelsea. Liam got 2 points, Nick got 0. But it was kind of weird to see Liam in the photo, but not include Nick when Nick drove for them longer, despite all of the issues. I mean, he was a driver for a hot minute. Like, what's going on? What was your reason? But I do want to add that, we had Logan Sargent all year, and he ended the season with 1 point. I mean, love the man and hope you do good in your future endeavors. But we had Liam for what, 3, 4, 5 races? And he ended the season at 2 points. So, like, what's going on? How can we help you to do better going forward? Because let us know.
I mean, if that isn't proof enough, though, that Liam deserves a seat in F1, then I don't know what is, because although I do feel bad for Nick and all, and I am very, I don't know if the word's happy, but like, I got to see him race in F1 in Miami. So I'm one of the few people who actually got to see Nick De Vries race in F1, which is kind of interesting. Like Hanna mentioned, the fact that Liam was able to score points, 2 points, in only a couple of races, and Logan only scored 1 in multiple races throughout the whole season. If this isn't proof that Liam deserves a seat, then I don't know what is. I hope he's able to get one eventually one day, and I'm hopeful that he will. I think he will. but also justice for Nick. And I'm very glad that I did get to see him race in Miami while he still was an F1 driver, because I still have all the pictures from him on all the stuff. So it's kind of a cool thing to say, I saw Nick DeVries race in F1. But fortunate for him, but hopefully Liam gets a seat.
Yeah, I really hope to see Liam on the grid in the near future. I expect to see him on the grid regardless. At some point, we do have at least, what is it, like 2 teams joining the grid in the next few years. So who knows when that one team joins in the future, what kind of like stir-up and everything is going to be, and maybe he'll have the opportunity to join the grid, maybe with AlphaTauri or Red Bull or somewhere else in the near future.
Yeah, Liam really did amazing in those 5 races, especially because one of them was Singapore, which is known to be like one of the harshest races on the drivers just because of all the humidity and stuff. And it's just, like Melissa mentioned, there's just not enough seats for all of the talented drivers out there. There's only 20, but there's definitely more drivers out there. I do feel really bad for Logan, though, as he really did seem to be improving a bit towards the end, like the later part of the season. And then to still not know if you're driving next year must be super stressful, especially because there's not a lot of other motorsports opportunities like at this point in the year for next year. Kind of everything is kind of getting, filled. So hopefully he'll find out soon about whatever his future may be.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of what everybody said about Liam, I don't know if it's actually confirmed or if it's just an ongoing rumor, but I think Liam was promised a seat in 2025 once like Checo's contract's up and, there's some changes. But he did great in the short period he raced, like I said, and it was really cool to see him in the paddock even after he was no longer racing, and getting some of that content and him still being included with Yuki and Danny despite not being like the current driver.
Well, I'm excited to see what the heck happens with all those contracts, because we're going to talk about it in a second, but I think the contracts are a little messy. But before we get there, the constructor standings, in case you're listening and you want to know, although it's on our socials, Red Bull Racing did come out on top. We had Mercedes in second, and we had Ferrari in third. Check out our socials for the rest. But honestly, I think that top 3, pretty good, decent. I love that Ferrari made it because they were having some issues. But considering they cleared McLaren by like 100 points, I'll take it. Now, speaking of the teams and who they're clearing, let's talk about contracts. I am so tired of these contracts not being ready before the season ends. I feel like these teams should be mandated some form of cutoff date, at least on when to inform drivers and the media of contract like finalizations. Like, just so drivers aren't left in the air, like that's it, they're waiting on a response. And then they're missing all these opportunities in either other motorsports or careers. And then 2, for like other drivers in lower sections trying to figure out where they can go, where they're going to end up. Should they be looking at Formula E? Should they be looking at, I don't know, like freaking NASCAR? Just, if they don't know what's happening, they're going to be set back, and then we're going to have an even messier season. Do we like messy seasons sometimes? Yes. But I don't think it's fair to the drivers.
I completely agree with you on that. Going into the break, doing postseason testing, doing some work, and all of that while still not knowing 100% if you have a seat for next year, it doesn't seem right. It doesn't sit right with me. And like you were saying, like it hinders them on other opportunities. We saw that with Mick last year when Haas dropped him like the very last part of the season when they were like, no seats left. If they had dropped him earlier, he would have probably gotten a seat somewhere else. Like, he might have gotten the Williams seat that Logan has. We don't know because Haas dropped him so late. And I felt so bad for him when that happened. I am really interested to see silly season next year, though, because we have a lot of those contracts are up in 2024. And I feel like we might see a lot of shuffling over the summer.
Yeah, I'm thirding what Chelsea and Rachel said. it's like, does it spice things up for viewers? Sure. Like, we love a bit of late stage drama, stuff like that. But like, I remember with the likes of Mick, or even 2018 with Carlos, when Renault dropped him in favor of Danny pretty late into the season, I was like, come on, guys, really? This is not fun for everyone. It's their livelihood at the end of the day. It's not just for our entertainment. Though at the same time, because there was no like movement this season, silly season was not sillying. And it's actually, fun fact, at least after 45 minutes of Googling, I could not find a single season before potentially this one, pending Logan, that there were no season to season driver changes. And that to me is insane. Like, what has F1 become? Like, what's happening? Like, on one hand, we have Max dominating, and on the other, we have no movement in the driver market either. Like, what's with all this new talent? I mean, Red Bull has a huge junior program. Merck is building theirs up. Ferrari's driver academy is huge. We need some new blood, people.
Just to caveat off of what Ito has said, I agree that there's not been much changes this year, and going into like next year type of thing. But when you have a very dominating driver already, a lot of times you want to give them like the full potential like time frame. But I'm interested to see next year and what that brings. But to go back to Logan, what are they waiting for? I feel bad that just in general, sometimes they leave these drivers in limbo. I know it's the name of the job, but it has to be nerve wracking not knowing for your future endeavors. Like, what does it do to their mental health? Like, that's got to be rough. And, like, the other girls had said, like, that's your life. Like, that's your livelihood. That's how you survive. And I know these drivers get paid a lot of money, but still, I just don't think it's right.
Who do y'all think would replace Logan or Lance, since we don't really know what's going on with him, if neither of them return to the grid? I know Felipe Drugovich has been an option for both teams. His name has been thrown around. And I now saw somewhere that Williams could be interested in Frederick Vesti after his successful F2 season. So I don't know what's going on. I'm interested to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, I honestly thought Williams would have announced something by Texas in Coda, just given that it's technically Logan's like second home race because it's the United States, at least, or by like the latest, like Las Vegas and everything. I know a lot of people were like speculating that, but it's just again kind of annoying they haven't said anything. And even like James' statement after Abu Dhabi leaves a lot to speculate, because he even was like, I had to like look at the data and everything, and it's like, you've been looking at the data all season long, so like how much more do you want to look into it? And I'm pretty sure like if he was looking at other drivers, he can probably have access to that throughout the season too. That's my assumption. Of course, I can only assume how much access they have to that stuff. But I mean, if Logan doesn't return, maybe Frederick. I could have sworn that like Felipe was already signed as a reserve driver to Aston, so I can see him staying there. Ito's shaking her head yes, so that was not a fever dream. Cool, thank you guys. But I don't think Checo will be leaving during the break. I don't see that happening. I know there was rumors about him, retiring in the Mexico GP and everything, but who knows? It is Red Bull, and we've seen Red Bull do Red Bull things. But I am curious to know what's going on behind the scenes at Aston Martin. All the rumors about Lawrence like selling the team, and then even those rumors about Lance like picking up like tennis and everything did give me a good giggle. I was like, if that happens, like I can totally see like Lawrence just like continuing to just like support Lance, which I love, a supportive father at the end of the day. So love a little good rumor mill at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think the Aston Martin lineup is pretty much locked in for a while, because I don't think Fernando's retiring again. I think he's just going to keep going, and they're going to have to physically drag him out of the car. And I think it's hard for anyone to be a teammate to Fernando Alonso, but he and Lance seem to be getting on pretty well. And I think Lance proved that he does want to be here at the beginning of the season, because why would you go through all of that if you don't want to be here? Like, and risk injuring yourself further for like the first race of the season. And I think, you know, we never really know mental health wise what's going on with the drivers, but I think it probably does have a major effect on how they perform throughout the season, depending on like what's happening. But, you know, and then back to Williams. And well, I would love to see Fred in you know, Formula One. I do kind of hope Williams would give Logan another year. Like, he is a part of their junior program, like the Williams junior program. And they did admit themselves that they brought Logan up to F1 too early. They were originally going to bring him up next year, but because of shenanigans last year, they had to bring him up a bit early. So I would like to see him have another season, but like, who knows? And then for like all the other teams, I dare say I think McLaren probably have the strongest driver lineup going forward. Both of their drivers are signed long term, I would say. And they both seem to have similar feedback with the car, and then they like a similar style of car, which kind of avoids the Ferrari problem where Charles and Carlos like two very different style of cars, which means it's very hard to develop the car. So I think that McLaren combo is going to be, if they keep getting along well, is going to be quite the team to look out for in the next few years.
I agree with you, Casey. I think besides McLaren and their dominating lineup and strong team, the only one I could truly compare it to would be a Mercedes. Maybe not the Mercedes car, but the Mercedes drivers as a whole, because Mercedes had a little bit of a rough patch this year. And they struggled with consistency, but we're not going to talk about that. McLaren was consistent for a long while after their upgrades post Miami, and I think when you compared the two, they did really good, and they were very consistent with each other.
Yeah, I think overall McLaren did amazing this season, especially if you look at it as like a comeback season for them, because that's really what it was. We went from calling them the tractor to seeing them on podium. But I think it's good that they're going to get a break. You know, the drivers, teams, that they can start kind of figuring out what they're going to do next season. And I mean, speaking of next season, we've already gotten some updates for what's going to happen during the winter break. So, Alpha, they have an update coming to the car. I don't know what it is, but according to Joe, and he was speaking to some Formula One people, and he was agreeing with Votos because they described the car's changes as a concept that is supposed to be under F1's latest ground effect era. So, much bigger improvement. That's the quote to what they have now. So, upgrades are going to be beginning, I believe, either this week or next week, because they already had some post-season practice races at Abu Dhabi. Now, the next update that came out is my favorite because it's for Williams. Now, Alex is super excited about the upgrades. He's already actually seen some of the upgrades in action on the car for next year. He was quoted speaking to F1, "I've seen the car in the wind tunnel as well. It looks great. It looks fast. I am no aerodynamics sis, but if it looks wavy, that's a good sign. So God, give us a sign and let Williams get to top 5 in the constructors next year, because I think that would be so badass."
I'm right there with you, Shells. I'm very excited to see what Williams has up their sleeve for next year. I do hope they make a decision for that second seat soon. The suspense might actually kill me if they don't. I'm also curious to see what changes Ferrari makes. Like I said, I'm pretty sure they took that SF23 back to Maranello and had a nice big bonfire. That's what I would do. And I'm very much part of like the theory that Fred is going to be making quite a few changes now that he's gotten a full season under his belt at Ferrari. And the car that we saw this year, the SF23, was mostly Binotto's design. It was his direction. I'm very interested to see what happens under Fred Vassier's direction. So, and especially considering, I think Charles's contract, and I think, isn't Carlos's contract up too? They're both up for negotiation in 2024. So very interested to see how the winter break goes as far as any personnel changes and stuff over at Ferrari. So we'll see. Outside of car development, personnel changes, which we're already seeing some personnel changes. I'm very much looking forward to watching the F1 Secret Santa video. I live for that. I love seeing what they come up with for each other, like Charles's gift to Max last year being the F1 Xbox game, but just Charles on the front. And the card was on Ferrari stationery, and I'm pretty sure it was wrapped in like a Ferrari bag. Like it, and the note saying, "To my biggest fan, the man is an icon."
I think I'm going to have to agree with Rachel on this one. I'm excited for the F1 Secret Santa video. I actually live for it. I always love seeing the different gifts and who gets who each year. Years prior, we get good gifts, and then we get our fair share of interesting slash bad gifts. Say I don't agree. I don't know. I'm also hoping we get to see some of the drivers travel. It's always so cool to see what other interests they kind of bring and do, and honestly relax and have some fun. But lastly, and Meg, you'll agree with me on this one, I'm hoping to have some more Lando streams because I have truly missed those, or Max's streams where Lando kind of bombs it because he's over hanging out with him and P. I mean, who doesn't love those? They always are going during my workday and they just make the day better. And then I just wanted to highlight what Rachel said. If they didn't bonfire that car, I'm actually going to be upset. And like, can all the fans like go to Maranello and like help with this? Because like that car, just no.
I do agree with you, Hannah. I am so ready and so excited for Lando and Max Twitch streams because they are chaotic. And honestly, some of Lando's streams, he just puts it on while he's building something or just to talk, and I'm here for it. But one of the main things that I just hope the teams and the drivers can get some kind of rest and relaxation over this break, just because it's been such a long year, and next year is going to be even longer with more races. So I just hope they can kind of chill, catch their breath, do whatever they need to relax, and then get ready to go again. But like some of the girls have mentioned, I am also excited for the upgrades for all teams because as we approach 2026, which is when the new regulations are being put into place, there will be new regulations and rules. So I wonder how that will impact development of the cars over these next 2 years. And like previously mentioned, a lot of teams started developing their 2024 cars back in the spring and summer of this year. And so far, a lot of them are saying they're seeing measurable improvements. So I'm really curious to see the cars on track and how they compare against each other, since everyone's saying it already looks so much better.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what the drivers do over the break and seeing the sneak peeks for next season's cars. I mean, we've already seen Lewis. For those who don't follow him on socials, that man went skydiving already. I don't know how Toto deals with that kind of stress because that man lives life on the edge. Love that for him, but like I'm pretty sure him and Roscoe probably are always stressed out because Lewis is always doing something insane like that. Love that for him. He looked like he was having fun. But when you guys were talking about the Secret Santa thing, I don't know if you guys saw Pierre's Abu Dhabi photo dump, but someone gave him a tripod for a gift. So that was funny and kind of interesting, to say the least.
It's funny. Actually, I know who.
I
Can
do
I
too,
say?
but I don't want to say it just to
Can we
not
say or
spoil.
can we not say?
I'd rather not, just to not spoil the video.
That's
Yeah.
true.
You can see who it is on his post, but wait for the video because it's gonna be fun. I just can't wait to see his reaction when he opens it. But like Meg had mentioned, I just hope they're getting all the rest they need because traveling that much can do a lot to the body, and it's not only the travel, but like working those insane hours that your body's not used to. Like I can just imagine like going from a place where it's like 14 hours ahead to a place that's like I don't even know. It's just a lot. I love looking forward to delivery being revealed. That's always exciting, seeing how they do it. And at least we have Drive to Survive coming out in February. And I'm also with the girls. Meet us in Maranello. You might catch me heading to Brackley to put that W14 on fire as well too. So y'all can join me on that.
Kind of a good thing that my mom just reminded me that my trip to Europe is coming up in 2 weeks, so I'll definitely go set those two on fire. First Maranello and then Brackley. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing about this season was just how much of a physical toll it took on everyone. Like, George was like dying in all of those press conferences at the end. And I think it's just way too much for all those teams because it was so brutal going from Las Vegas, where I don't think anyone knew what time it was, immediately to like all the way across the world in Abu Dhabi would be rough on anyone, let alone people who have already done this like a million times this year. And I think it was George actually that mentioned having some kind of like rotating, so like not every staff member goes to every race, like they rotate it so that way you can go home and see your family and not get sick as often, or some kind of just relief from all of the traveling, because you know the teams aren't in first class, they're in economy class planes, which are not comfortable, so you don't really sleep. And I just can't even imagine how much, you know, how exhausted you get just from doing that. But hopefully we'll kind of get some fun social media content over the break, you know, kind of behind the scenes, what it takes to, you know, prepare the car for the next season. Because I think it's always fun to see what we don't see at the racetrack. And then perhaps we can even see, you know, of course, Lando streams, but maybe even some sim racing streams. I think they're always fun to watch, and maybe bring back the Twitch quartet, or just have some fun, you know, racing games between some of the drivers or something like that. But looking forward to, like, development wise, I'm just kind of curious to see if we're going to have any surprises like we did this year with Aston Martin at preseason testing. So we'll see who can kind of make the most improvements over the winter. But yeah, I totally agree. I've seen many memes of the Mercedes and Ferrari cars being in dumpsters, on fire, chucked in the water, like they're going to be gone. And I don't know if you guys saw, but like one of the Mercedes employees got like chucked into the marina and lost his wedding ring. And they had this whole like diving expedition to find it. And he did find it. They did find the ring. So like his wife will not kill him when he gets home. But like they had this whole like multiple hour diving expedition to find it. And I just think it's an amusing story. But and we might not have had a silly season this year for drivers, but it seems we're having an end of year silly season for trainers and sponsors, as Carlos's trainer like is now going to be Max's trainer because Brad's, you know, leaving, and you know Michael Italiano is leaving as well. And then Monster, longtime sponsor with Mercedes, while still being partnered with Lewis Hamilton, is going to be moving to McLaren next year. So everything else is moving around. The drivers are staying constant, which I don't know how they would do Rookie of the Year next year if there's no rookies. But everything else seems to be changing. Even team names, because AlphaTauri is going to be something.
Really quick, can I just say, since Spotify Wrapped came out today, I'm kind of hoping and wondering over the break if we'll get some more music from Charles, because that was really good. And I saw that on a lot of people's Spotify Wrapped. So who knows, maybe that'll be how Charles spends his break.
And now we're going to move on to probably my favorite part of the season. And this one's going to be a little different, our pre-outro. And this one, we're going to do an F1 quote of the year. This is also the viral quote going around right now. And with that, the 2023 season has come to an end. It was a pleasure, F1. And now on to 2024 season we go. What was your favorite moments of the season? Let us know on our socials. Everywhere we are Paddock Girls Podcast, except Twitter, where you can find us at Paddock Girls Pod. Thanks for joining us in the paddock. See you next time. Bye.
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 Bye.